Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive.
Oh, yeah.
This one's going to be, I think it's going to be pretty fascinating.
Yeah.
We're going to be looking at Spiritism.
Cool.
And in particular, we're going to be looking at concepts like vital fluid, vital principle, and ectoplasm.
Okay.
So this is, those energies that Spiritism says kind of animate us and connect us to the spirit world. Our source material for this deep dive is, it's pretty cool, actually. It's a Q&A episode from a Brazilian Spiritist radio show called Respondendo aos ouvintes, which translates to responding to the listeners. It's from Radio Rio de Janeiro.
Nice.
It features all sorts of questions about Spiritism, but we're going to be zeroing in on the ones that deal with these vital energies.
Right.
I think you'll find this one, I think you'll find it insightful. So let's jump right in. Our first question is from a listener who is curious about the difference between vital fluid, vital principle, and ectoplasm. I have to admit, these terms always kind of conjure up these images of, like, spooky glowing goo for me.
Right. Yeah. It's interesting how those terms sort of capture the imagination. It's not quite as, visually dramatic, but they do point to some pretty fundamental ideas in Spiritism.
Okay.
And so to answer that question, I can tell you right off the bat that vital fluid and vital principle, they're basically interchangeable.
Okay.
They both refer to that same, life-giving energy that animates all living things.
So what about ectoplasm?
Where does that fit in?
Where does that fit in?
Ectoplasm is actually a term that was coined by researchers outside of Spiritism. It's not something that Allan Kardec himself used.
Okay.
But in Spiritist circles, it's often used synonymously with vital fluid or vital principle.
Okay.
Particularly when we're talking about mediumship.
So it's all basically the same stuff.
Yeah.
Just different names depending on who you're talking to.
Exactly.
Okay, I got it.
And, it gets really interesting when we start to consider the work of André Louise,
Really?
who's a prominent spirit who communicates through mediums and has written extensively about Spiritism.
Yeah, I've heard of him.
He's quite well known in Spiritist literature.
Yeah.
And his books like Evolution in Two Worlds and Mechanisms of Mediumship offer these really fascinating insights into the spirit world and the nature of these energies. For instance, in Evolution in Two Worlds, he describes this scene where a doctor's spirit detaches from his physical body during an out-of-body experience, and he's enveloped in what he calls an ectoplasmic robe.
Okay, now that sounds like spooky glowing goo.
Right.
So what exactly is this ectoplasm?
Well, in essence, you can think of it as this subtle semi-material energy that's linked to our physical bodies through the paraspirit. And the paraspirit, you can think of it as a spirit's non-physical body.
Right.
Sort of like this intermediary between the spirit realm and the physical world. What's really interesting, though, is that this ectoplasm carries the mental and emotional imprints of the spirit.
Oh.
It's almost like a spiritual fingerprint.
I never thought of it that way. So it's more than just a life force. It's also a carrier of our individual essence.
Precisely. And it plays a really crucial role in reincarnation. Every reincarnation, whether it's planned or brought about by necessity, it requires preparation.
Okay.
And during this preparatory phase, the spirit absorbs this vital principle or ectoplasm to establish a connection with the physical body it's going to inhabit.
So it's like the vital principle is the energy that allows a spirit to actually anchor itself to a physical form.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it.
But why is that connection necessary? What does it enable?
Well, it goes beyond simple embodiment.
Okay.
It facilitates this interplay between the spirit's experiences and the physical body's development.
Okay.
So it allows the spirit to learn and grow through the physical world, influencing everything from, personality traits to even physical characteristics. It's this complex dance between the spiritual and the material.
I see. So it's a much deeper connection than I initially realized.
Yeah.
It's like the vital principle bridges the gap between who we are as spiritual beings and who we become in our physical lives.
Exactly. And here's where it gets even more intriguing.
Okay.
This vital principle isn't just something that's found in humans. It exists in all living things, even in, minerals, plants, and animals.
Wow.
So think of it as the spark of life that animates everything in the universe.
So even a rock has vital principle.
That's right.
It's like this universal energy that connects all living things.
Precisely. It's this divine element that's present in all creation. And its presence helps explain a lot of phenomena that are described in Spiritist literature. For example, there's a scene in the book Blind Fate where a character, he's being mentored by a spirit, and he visits a hospital. And as he's walking through the hospital, he doesn't just sense this vital principle in the patients, but in the building itself.
Wow.
Like the walls are imbued with this energy.
That's such a vivid image, and it really drives home the idea that this energy isn't just within us, it's everywhere.
Right.
It's almost like a living web connecting everything.
That's a great way to put it. It's this interconnectedness that really lies at the heart of Spiritism.
Okay, this is all starting to make a lot more sense.
Yeah.
But how does this vital principle or ectoplasm play a role in things like mediumistic appearances?
Okay.
Those instances where spirits are said to manifest in the physical world.
Yeah, well, that's where the idea of ectoplasm as this subtle, moldable energy comes in. Certain mediums can exteriorize this energy, creating this link between the paraspirit, their spirit body, and the physical world.
So it's like the medium is creating a bridge.
Yeah.
Channeling this energy to allow spirits to communicate or even manifest.
Yeah, exactly. And in some cases, it can even lead to materialization.
Right.
Where a spirit actually takes on a temporary physical form.
Wow. I've always found that idea so intriguing, but also a bit hard to grasp.
Yeah.
Like, it almost sounds unbelievable.
I know, it seems incredible, but I've actually witnessed materialization firsthand.
Really?
I once attended a session where a medium exteriorized ectoplasm through various orifices.
Wow.
Including their pores, nose, and even genitals.
That's quite a visual.
Right.
So where does all that ectoplasm come from?
Well, that's a really important question.
Yeah.
And to be honest, there's still a lot we don't fully understand.
Okay.
What we do know is that the medium's ectoplasm acts as this kind of building block. It combines with the energy of the environment to create a temporary physical mold for the spirit.
So it's like the ectoplasm provides the raw material, and then something else directs it, shapes it.
It's a fascinating process. But yeah, it does appear that the spirit's consciousness plays a role in directing the formation of the materialization.
That's mind-blowing.
Yeah.
Are there any mediums known for materializations that that our listener might want to look into if they're interested in learning more?
Absolutely. Some of the most famous mediums known for materializations include Miranda, Mirabelli, Pisatino, and Chico Xavier. Their stories and the accounts of their materializations are truly captivating.
All this talk about ectoplasm being this subtle energy that can be manipulated to create physical forms reminds me of something kind of from the tech world, plasma TVs. It seems like a strange connection, but
it's fascinating how those connections appear, right?
Yeah.
But actually, what's fascinating is that the Japanese and the South Koreans have been researching and utilizing this type of energy in their screen technology. So it's a tangible example of how this subtle energy we've been discussing, this vital principle, it might have applications that extend far beyond what we typically associate with Spiritism.
It's almost like science is catching up with Spiritism in a way, uncovering the potential of these energies that have been talked about for centuries.
Exactly. There's so much more to explore and understand about the nature of these energies and their potential applications. It's a really exciting field of study.
Yeah. This has been so illuminating already. I bet our listeners just as captivated as I am by these ideas.
Yeah.
But let's move on to some other questions.
Okay.
That our listeners have about the spirit world.
Sounds good. I'm ready to dive into more of these intriguing inquiries.
Okay. So our next listener has a question that I think many people might ponder at some point in their lives. They're wondering if it's okay to pray for spirits who haven't found the light. Perhaps those who are, lost, confused, or earthbound.
Right. That's a really profound question. It touches on our compassion for those who might be struggling even in the spirit world.
It does.
Yeah.
And it's a natural concern.
It is. But I want to reassure you that praying for anyone, whether they're living or have passed on, is never wrong. We're taught to love our enemies and pray for those who persecute us. And that message of compassion, it applies universally.
So extending our prayers to those in the spirit world who might be experiencing darkness or confusion is actually aligned with those teachings?
Absolutely. It's an act of love and compassion. And, it's interesting to consider the concept of shadow from Jungian psychology. It suggests that everyone, even the most enlightened among us, has areas of darkness within themselves. Praying for others, even those who seem lost, can be a way to illuminate those shadows both within ourselves and in the world around us.
That's a beautiful way to think about it. So it's not just about helping those spirits who are struggling.
Right.
It's also about recognizing and addressing the darkness within ourselves.
Precisely. It's a journey of self-discovery and compassion that ultimately benefits everyone.
I love that perspective. Okay, shifting gears a bit, our next listener has a question about a specific Spiritist practice, Evangelo Nolar, or Gospel at Home. They want to know if it's appropriate to pray specifically for discarnate loved ones during this practice.
That's a wonderful question. And it speaks to that deep love and connection we have with those who've passed on. Evangelo Nolar is a beautiful weekly practice where families gather to study the gospel and connect with the spirit world. However, I want to emphasize that prayer isn't confined to specific times or locations.
Okay.
You know, it's a constant connection to the divine.
Right.
A way to nurture our spiritual connection whenever and wherever we feel called to do so.
So while Evangelo Nolar provides a structured time for prayer connection, it's not the only time we can reach out to our loved ones in the spirit world.
Exactly. We can transform any thought into a prayer by simply remembering them with gratitude, sending them love, or asking for their guidance.
That's such a simple yet powerful reminder. It's about keeping those connections alive in our hearts and minds, regardless of the circumstance.
It is, and those connections are powerful. There's a poignant example in the book, Memories of a Suicide, where spirits are actually depicted as visualizing the prayers that they receive from loved ones. It's a touching reminder of the impact our thoughts and prayers can have even after someone has passed on.
That image really underscores how important it is to remember and pray for those who have transitioned to the spirit world. Our love and intentions can truly reach them.
Indeed. Our connections transcend physical boundaries.
Okay. Our next question deals with a topic that I think many people struggle with both within and outside of Spiritism, and that's finances.
Right.
This listener wants to know why they're experiencing financial problems despite praying to God for help.
This is a common concern, and it's important to acknowledge that spirits can absolutely help with financial difficulties. They can offer guidance, support, and even open doors to opportunities we might not have seen otherwise. However, we also have to remember that we have a part to play.
So it's not just about asking for help, it's also about taking responsibility for our own situation.
Exactly. While spiritual aid is available, it's up to us to take the necessary steps to improve our situation. That might mean, seeking employment, pursuing education, managing our finances more wisely, or even examining our beliefs and attitudes around money.
It sounds like it's a partnership between our own efforts and the guidance we receive from the spiritual realm.
Yes. And I'll offer this somewhat provocative statement. Even God won't do your part. We have to meet the divine halfway.
That's a great reminder that we're not passive recipients of grace. We have an active role to play in shaping our lives and overcoming challenges.
Absolutely. Our actions matter.
Okay. Our last question touches on a topic that can be sensitive, especially for those who've experienced challenges within spiritual communities. This listener, who has faced disappointments within the Spiritist community, asks if the spirits who manifest in Umbanda are the same ones who manifest in Spiritism.
That's a thought-provoking question, and it highlights the, the diversity of paths within the broader spiritual landscape. First, I think it's important to remember that spirits are everywhere. They're not confined to specific religions or practices. They will manifest according to their affinities and the environment they find themselves in.
So a spirit might manifest differently depending on the context, whether it's a Spiritist center, an Umbanda temple, or even a personal setting?
It's certainly possible. The environment, the rituals, the energy of the people present, all of these factors can influence how a spirit chooses to communicate. It's like speaking different languages. You might express yourself differently depending on who you're talking to and the setting you're in.
That makes sense. But what about the listener's disappointment with individuals within the Spiritist community?
Right.
How can we reconcile that with seeking spiritual growth?
Well, that's a very real concern, and it's important to acknowledge that disappointments with individuals within any spiritual or religious group, it shouldn't deter us from seeking spiritual growth. Our true connection lies with a higher power, not with flawed individuals who are also on their own journeys.
So we shouldn't let the actions of a few tarnish our entire understanding of the path or prevent us from connecting with the divine.
Exactly. It's like judging an entire forest by a single diseased tree. There's so much more to explore and experience.
I like that analogy. Any other advice for this listener who might be feeling disillusioned?
Yeah.
How can we navigate those disappointments and continue on our spiritual journeys?
Here's something to consider. Often, when we see negativity in others, it's a reflection of our own internal state. It's a good opportunity for self-reflection. Ask yourself, what is it within me that's causing me to feel so disappointed with others?
That's a powerful question. It shifts the focus from blaming others to understanding our own reactions and perhaps even uncovering areas where we need to grow.
Precisely. And ultimately, the most important thing is to follow the teachings of Jesus, love your neighbor as yourself, and God above all things. That's the guiding principle that should inform all our interactions, regardless of our spiritual path.
That's such a powerful reminder to approach our spiritual journeys and life in general with love and compassion. It's so easy to get caught up in judgments and negativity.
Right.
But ultimately, it's about our own growth and understanding.
Absolutely. It's about remembering that everyone is on their own path, learning and evolving at their own pace. Okay, moving on to our next question. This one's a bit of a head-scratcher. It's about those times when, we're trying to do the right thing, we're trying to live a good life, but it feels like we're constantly hitting roadblocks.
Right.
This listener wants to know, if we have free will, why do bad things still happen to good people?
Ah, yes, the age-old question of suffering. It's something that has puzzled philosophers and theologians for centuries. And there's no easy answer, but from a Spiritist perspective, we can look at it through the lens of reincarnation and karma.
Okay, how so? Well, Spiritism teaches us that we're not just these isolated beings living a single life. We are eternal spirits on a journey of evolution. And the challenges we face in this life, they're not punishments, but rather opportunities for growth and learning.
So it's like those roadblocks are actually there to help us evolve.
In a way, yes. Think of it like this. Imagine you're trying to learn a new skill, like playing the piano. You're going to hit some wrong notes, you're going to make mistakes. But those mistakes are part of the learning process. And they teach you what not to do and help you refine your technique.
So in a sense, those bad things are actually helping us become better, more evolved beings.
Precisely. They're pushing us to develop our virtues, to learn from our mistakes, and to ultimately progress on our spiritual journey.
That's a really comforting thought. It takes some of the sting out of those tough times,
Yeah, it helps us to see those challenges not as random acts of cruelty, but as part of a larger plan for our spiritual growth.
Okay, so if our challenges are tied to our past actions, what about our future? Can we change our destiny?
That's a great question, and the answer is yes, absolutely. Spiritism emphasizes that we have free will. We're not simply puppets of fate.
So we're not just doomed to repeat the same mistakes over and over again.
Not at all. With each choice we make, with each action we take, we're shaping our future. We have the power to create positive karma, to learn from our past and choose a different path.
So it's like we're constantly writing our own story.
Precisely. And even though we might face challenges and setbacks along the way, we always have the power to change the direction of our narrative.
That's incredibly empowering. It gives us hope that we can actually create a better future for ourselves.
Exactly. It's about taking responsibility for our choices and recognizing that we have the power to change.
Okay, this is heavy stuff. We're talking about free will, karma, destiny, all these big concepts. But how does all of this tie back to the idea of vital fluid and ectoplasm? Those energies we were discussing earlier.
Well, remember that vital fluid or vital principle is that animating life force that connects us to the physical world.
Right.
It's through this energy that our spirit can interact with matter, experience the world, and learn and grow.
Okay.
So when we talk about karma, about the consequences of our actions, it's not just some abstract moral principle. It's actually playing out on an energetic level through this vital fluid.
So it's like our actions create ripples in this vital energy field.
Yeah, that's a good way to visualize it. Our thoughts, our emotions, our actions, they all have an impact on this energy and create a sort of energetic blueprint that influences our future experiences.
Wow, I never thought of it that way. It's like this energy is a living record of our choices.
In a sense, yes. It carries the imprint of our experiences and influences the opportunities and challenges we encounter. It's a fascinating and complex interplay between spirit and matter.
This has been an absolutely incredible deep dive. We've explored the concept of vital energy, how it connects us to the spirit world, its role in mediumship and reincarnation, and even how it ties into the idea of karma and free will.
It's been a pleasure diving into these concepts with you.
A huge thank you to all our listeners for joining us on this journey. I hope this deep dive has inspired you to explore the world of Spiritism further. There's so much to discover about the nature of life, death, and the connections between the physical and spiritual realms.
Keep seeking, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.
Until next time, may your vital energy flow freely and guide you on your path of growth and discovery.